Hi everyone, super excited to have Maciej together at the Founder Story at Bootcamp. And Maciej is the CEO of Ragnarson, and I read already his story in a blog post, and I found it super interesting. But I don't want to spoiler the story, so I will leave it to him. So yeah, just go ahead and tell us your story.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Who of you have ever had a crisis at your company? Anyone? Not so many crises? Okay, one hand, I see Oscar.
Crisis everywhere.
For those of you who are behind it, well, congratulations, you've made it. You somehow solved the problem. You're here today, so it wasn't so disastrous after all. For the rest, I have bad news. It's probably going to happen sooner or later. Obviously, this is not what I wish you to happen. This is life. And today I would like to share my story, my different crises that helped me to shape the way I think and how I run my business. The story starts in 2013. I used to be a system administrator and employee at my current company, Ragnarson. And the company was run by the founder named Łukasz. Łukasz was responsible for everything. Sales, recruitment, administration, you name it. This was like a one-person army. Even though the company back then had more than 30 people. We were doing projects for different kind of startups, usually online marketplaces, software as a service solutions. And Łukasz was trying to really cover everything and let engineers do their work. But as you can imagine, the company of this size, it's very difficult to run it alone. So what happened? Everything started to deteriorate. We had a lot of problems on the sales side. The pipeline was dry. More and more developers were without any project. So what we did with my workmates, we realized the situation is not going into the best direction, and we offered some help to Łukasz. We actually made this kind of intervention that you can recognize from sitcoms. He wasn't doing very well, so we sat down with him and said, listen, we know it's problematic. We know you're responsible for everything, but there's maybe something that we can do to improve the situation. We really valued what he built. We wanted to be a part of it. We wanted to make sure that the company still has a future. It was very harsh feedback, but he gone through it and he accepted help. He was actually surprised that we software developers are happy to help on the business side with whatever challenges the company had. So this is when I become kind of like a business person. And my first job for the first 6 months was to come up with ideas, what to do with our sales channels, with our sales funnel, how to get new projects on board. And after those 6 months, we got terrible news. Łukasz was diagnosed with cancer. It was brain tumor. And from the day when he got his diagnosis to his funeral, it took only 3 weeks. We prepared for such a contingency, but nobody really believed that this is something that can happen. It was only like plan C, not even plan B. There was really nothing we could do. And it's one thing to plan such things, such backup plans, and it's another one to execute them once you need to. He was our mentor. He was our friend. He was our business partner. And yet, we needed to move forward. We decided together with the rest of shareholders that we want to fight for the company. Łukasz created something of value to us, and we wanted to preserve this legacy. So at the age of 26, I overnight became the CEO. I had no clue. And we had problems like not knowing our clients, not knowing our developers, not knowing how to pay taxes or issue invoices. Very simple stuff. And with this huge problem somewhat behind us of him passing away, we had another one at the end of the year. We were about to finish one of the biggest projects that we had. And as you can imagine, the sales pipeline was still dry. We didn't really have a lot of ideas how to improve the situation, but I had one. I've been to Berlin a couple of times before it all happened, and I realized it's a great place to be, full of different opportunities. So I went to Berlin at the end of the year. My first idea, very naive, was to go to all the meetups that are happening, and fortunately in Berlin there's millions of meetups every week, and just to try to find new clients. I quickly realized that at every meetup, there's at least 2 guys like me, but they look better, they speak better, they're more professional in what they do. And it wasn't so easy really to find my target group in the end. So I tried a different approach, reaching out to all the people that I know, some old contacts of the company, existing clients. We had actually a bunch of clients in Berlin, so it made a lot of sense. But it wasn't really working. And then after a few weeks, I got a phone call. An old contact of Ragnarson calls me and says, well, listen, Maciej, I know you have this hosting business, and I know actually a guy who is looking for someone who can help, who would like to build a hosting solution for his own. Maybe there is a chance for you to help him out. Of course, I'm super happy to speak with him. So we set up a meeting. It was the nicest guy possible. He was looking exactly for the kind of thing that we would be able to build. And guess what? He wanted to start in January, exactly at the time when my team was becoming available because the big client was ending the collaboration. The sales side is not so difficult, I arrive, I make a bunch of phone calls, meetings, I close a nice deal. Whoa. In the next week, another guy calls me and says, well, Maciej, we collaborated before. We actually need a team again. Maybe you would be able to provide someone. Of course I would be able to provide someone. How can I help you? So we built 2 teams for 2 different projects in a few weeks at the end of 2013. And those projects, and we didn't know it back then, were going to be the top 2 projects for the next year and a half. Life is beautiful. The sales part is solving itself. I can focus on so many other things because actually we started having problems on the supply side, on the recruitment. We also wanted to preserve the environment that Łukasz created, which meant working on the company culture. Many different goals for many different parts of the company, apart from sales. At some point, we even felt like wolves of Wall Street because the money was pouring. The teams that we built at the beginning were getting bigger. It was so easy. We started hiring people. Great. And then a year and a half later, it was August, a very nice warm evening, Friday. I was planning to go for a walk with my girlfriend. I finished my work, and then I received this email from the top project of ours, from the top client. Well, listen, Maciej, we were supposed to finish the project no sooner than at the end of the year, and we were actually about to meet with your team in a month, but there was a sudden change of plans on our side. I hope you understand, but there is like a 2 weeks notice period in our agreement, so we'll continue for the next 2 weeks and then we are gone. I hope you understand and have a great weekend. Of course I understand. This is an agency. Projects come and go. I understand those situations. This is something I should expect. This is something I actually expected back then to happen. We are going to work it out. No worries. There are solutions for those problems. Then in a few weeks, we have our 10th anniversary. We organized a huge party. We must have invited like more than 100 people to our office in Poland. everyone who has ever worked at Ragnarson, friends of the company, you name it. Partying hard, enjoying life. But still on the back of my head, I knew that this situation with this project not continuing as we expected is going to be really problematic. But today, we party hard. Today, this is all that matters. And then in a few weeks, I get another phone call. Guess who calls me? The second biggest project. Well, Maciej, I know that we were about to finish the collaboration no sooner than at the end of the year, but actually we ran out of money. So I hope you understand, but we need to solve it pretty quickly. Of course I understand. It's an agency. Projects come and go. I understand. We'll figure it out. No worries. And we hung up, and I know that we are fucked. It's one thing to lose one big client. It's another thing to lose two, almost at the same time, especially when they represent almost more than 50% of your revenue. Our sales pipeline was still dry. We didn't put so much effort into it since sales was so easy. We actually were solving other problems with different partners, different shareholders that we parted ways with in the meantime. But then this was the start of the worst 6 months of my life. I knew that I'm not able to save this situation to cover the missing revenue that's going to be here anytime soon. So we need to focus on the expenses. In our case, expenses mean one thing: people. The same people who were so difficult to hire, train, onboard, make sure that they fit into our company culture. The same people that I wanted to lead to fulfill our vision and promise them great projects. We needed to come up with a solution which was basically layoffs. And this idea was so difficult for us that we become, together with my two business partners, we started making mistakes and acting in a very opaque way. Before that happened, we were actually quite a transparent company. As an example, everyone had access to our budget. Everyone could see how much money everyone else is making, how much our clients pay, what are our expenses. Typically, this is top secret at agencies, but not with us. But once you need to lay off 1/3 of the people, then it's a bit difficult to do it when everyone is looking. And especially if you don't know what you're doing. Since we are a remote company, it was also difficult to organize it, to put everyone into one place. So we haven't done it. We did a lot of different mistakes when we delivered the message. Our reputation as owners wasn't the best one among the team. The morale was low. We were left with around 20 people. Some of them left on their own because they didn't like what we did. And then we needed to start making some real plans. That was only the thing that was helping us not to go bankrupt so fast, but we were still not able to stay afloat. So the first thing we did was we did a workshop with the entire team, and we get back to the position of full transparency. We said, guys, we disappointed you, but as you can see, we are not able to handle the situation on our own. We really need some help. Your help from the outside. And this is when we introduced a bit of self-management. So they already had a lot of information, our team, about the company, how it works. And then we decided to delegate the responsibility and let them make the major decisions on their own as well, to speed things up. That was one of the solutions. Another one was obviously focusing on sales. So we started traveling all around Europe, visiting different capitals, speaking with all the people that were willing to speak with us, dozens of meetings, dozens of calls. We managed to close 2 small deals, nothing crazy. And then I got a phone call. the same guy who actually called me a year before we lost the 2 big clients. The year before, the conversation was about him joining a startup. Oh, tell me more about it. You know, I want to join them, and we will need definitely a team at some point. I'm super happy to help. But you know, for now, we don't really have any money. I understand, you know, maybe we can come up with something. Let's think about it. And I hung up, and I realized something. We were so confident about hiring people that we actually have a bunch of people sitting and doing maybe not nothing, but internal stuff, which is not always super compelling to developers. So the idea was, why don't we lend those guys to the startup in need? It's going to be a win-win situation. They will going to get a team, something delivered. Our people are not going to be sitting bored. And then we will see what happens. So the year after, a month or so after the workshop with the entire company, he calls me again and says, well, Maciej, we are grateful for your support. We actually closed our round, and now we are able to pay. We need more stability, more predictability from your side. When everything was for free, obviously, it could have changed any time. Are you able to help us? Maybe we actually need to grow the team. Of course I'm able to help. This is the best news since the last 2 years. This company was Vehiculum, here from Berlin. And today there are more than 100 people, quite successful on their market. This is what really saved us back then. Today we are in a very different situation. We have a sales team. We know who are our clients. We know how to reach out to them. We know what we are doing, at least to some extent. We also have a second pillar. We invest in early-stage impact-driven startups. And this helps us to do 2 things. The first one is to actually focus on projects that matter to us, related to climate change, sustainability. But at the same time, it's helping on the business side because it differentiates us from the market. It provides us with we are able to generate more value and offer it to our clients. I have 3 lessons that I would like to share from this story that were especially important to me. The first one is about being humble. I'm not anymore a wolf of Wall Street. I know that things are complicated. I know how difficult it is to pull it off, to build a company, to do whatever you need to do, not to go bankrupt or to lose this game. The second lesson is about collaboration. For many years, I had no clue I shouldn't be doing everything on my own. So I slowly started accepting help from the outside. I think in your case, it's not the problem. You're already here at Rootcup. You understand the value coming from help from other people. But for me, it was years of experience to get it. And the third lesson is focus. We have come up with millions of excuses why the sales part didn't matter so much. It took so many crises to actually understand it. Today, sales is on the top of my list together with the fund. But back then, it wasn't so obvious, and I didn't understand how key it is for our survival. This is all I wanted to share with you today. I'm happy to answer all your questions, and thank you so much for listening.
Thank you very much, Maciej. As mentioned, I knew some of those insights, but I was really happy to hear them again. Are there any questions? I have obviously some questions, but I don't know if any of the startups come up already with some. Maybe I just kick it off with, oh no, Oscar, go ahead.
I'd just like to thank you for a really interesting presentation. I really like the story. I mean, you can maybe make a movie out of it one day. And just out of curiosity, how did your colleagues react to all those ups and downs of the company?
So depending on the group, some people understood it's difficult, especially those people who knew us a bit better, with whom we really had a relationship. So with some people, since we work remotely, typically we try to meet twice a year. And with some people, you have a chance to really speak, to develop a relationship, and with others, you don't have it. So everyone who is with whom the relationship was weaker, was more difficult to retain.
Yeah, thanks.
And now that you mentioned that you work remotely, how does it exactly work? Because I think there are not yet, okay, now with Corona, everyone is working remotely, but if this is like the core of your company, what are, let's say, the structures and the things that you do to make it work?
Yeah, we've been doing it from the very beginning, so there was no transition period. Like many companies face this challenge, they were doing something locally, and then now they need to come up with some new processes and change the way they do things. In our case, we started by being a remote company, partially also for the reason that there were not so many Ruby developers that we focused on in the early days in one place. So it was natural to hire people from elsewhere. We have different kind of mechanism to make sure that we are able to help people to make relationships with each other. So for instance, we do a bunch of meetups online when we make presentations, exchange knowledge. There is like one group for technical people. It's more another one for a broader audience, so not only technical people can join. We meet twice a year, if not 3 times a year, in person. Obviously, in the Corona times, that wasn't so much possible, so we did it online, and we immediately saw the difference. It was fine to do presentations and exchange feedback, but not so easy to really bond not so easy for the people to bond. So spend some time in the evening, some chit chat, some drinking, yeah. But definitely there needs to be mechanism on different levels of the company.
Okay, we had last week also an interesting, let's say, founder story, and it was about new work, and it's also a company here from Hanover that they have like this department without the head of the department, so they're kind of self-managing. Mm-hmm. Do you have also something similar? Because you mentioned it before, I don't know, is it still the case now?
Yeah, like there are different methodologies. The one that we simplified and adapted was we call like different groups of people circles. So recruitment could be a circle, and then everyone has a role within the circle. So someone responsible for the first stage of the recruitment process, someone responsible for the second one, and so on and so forth. So there is, in a way, there is a lead of every circle, but it stems more from the roles this person may have, and not necessarily from some kind of status among the company.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And do you have a very, like, because you through the years you went on many ups and downs in terms of recruitment, do you have like a special recruitment process, or how do you do it?
The special is probably a relative thing. So we have 3 steps. The first one is just getting to know each other, seeing what's on the other side. The second one is the technical interview. So even with non-technical people, we still have a technical one, so relevant skills for the job. And the third one, and the most unique, I would say, is the third stage, when we check how well somebody fits into our company. And we don't really have a bunch of smart questions to reveal it, but we engage up to 10 people to do those calls. So one by one-on-one calls with 10 different people. And it really gives our candidates a chance to get to know people on the team and decide for themselves if this is what makes sense. So typically, I try to help every candidate to assess us as a company and make sure that what we offer is what they're looking for. So it's more like a conversation with a friend. At least this is the way I like to think about it. But maybe not necessarily so easy for candidates. a friend who would be able to advise you, if this is a good direction or not. Because if this is not a good direction, they're going to leave immediately. Like software engineers don't have any problems with finding a job and engaging them, onboarding, and so on and so forth. It takes time, so it's better to avoid someone who is simply looking for something else.
And where are all your employees? So they're spread around. Are they but based in Europe, or you don't have any kind of limitation?
So this is mixed. I would say we are in this transition period right now. Most of the people are Polish, but we have some people from Ukraine as well. And we work from 4 different time zones, from Thailand to Brazil. But most of the people, sitting in Poland in many different locations. So we have headquarters, actually. There is an office, like a physical space, but it's not so popular, let's say, among the team.
Okay. I can continue with questions. Anyone else?
So you mentioned quite a few times the company culture. Is it something which is precisely defined, or is it something that people just feel?
Yeah, I would say this is something you need to take care of. So we really appreciate, before all those things happened, we really appreciate the culture that we had, something that naturally emerged by just working with Łukasz and being together, bonding. Actually, we had an office, like a physical space back then that we attended quite often. So it was a bit easier for us to develop something. But with time, and also when he passed away, we knew that there are going to be problems. So you need to be more explicit and more explicit to really go into the direction that you want, or to preserve what you have. If you just let it go, there's going to be, in the long run, there's going to be problematic. So I would say it has to be explicit. For instance, we introduced core values. So like 5 different things that we value, explained with 5 simple kind of description points. We had a conversation with everyone at the company who was back then at the company to really see if this is what they feel, how the company is, if this is something that we value. It's more like a North Star situation than reality on every day. Obviously, we are just people. We have shortcomings. We make mistakes, but we know where should we be going. This is just one element, especially important and for us, and something that really worked. And if you don't want to have it just as a document on your drive with a nice list of 5 things, you need to implement it in different places of the company. So for instance, when we recruit people, during this first stage, when we check culture fit, we actually have questions related to those points. So if we value self-development and openness, then we have questions checking if this person values the same. It's helpful. It's not like a super solution. It's not like a silver bullet for every problem, but at least it helps us to navigate. Even the best recruiters make mistakes 30% of the time, and average recruiters are right only 30% of the time. So you need to have like as many tools as possible to select the right people. Especially, like, I remember the time when there was only 20 people. Every person had a relatively big impact on the company. Once you have 20, obviously they have more impact. When you have 40, then the dynamic is very different. So yeah, I believe it's super important to be picky and to talk with candidates in a way that we have some offering. You're looking for something. We believe in certain things. You believe in certain things. Is there any intersection of this is just not going to work?
Thanks.
Maciej, you said you were somehow changing into or adding impact investing. So what is the investment rationale more? Is it more raising synergies, learning maybe from the startups, or is it then picking the best startups to grow with them?
I'm not sure if I get the question.
So what is your investment hypothesis, or how do you choose the right investment? So is it more having a synergy from the team where you do investment in, or is it that you want to start a revolving investment circle, pick the best teams, get exits, and then start or feed the fuel the investment again?
Yeah, so far, to be honest, it's been all over the place. We have spoken with more than 300 startups so far, and we had cases when we said yes, and the fit was not so big. So there were ways for us to help. Maybe in the future, we like the impact, we like the team, but we weren't able to really provide more value added. And they were the opposite. There were also the opposite cases. So someone with whom we could be working closely, helping them, for instance, on the recruitment side to set up the process, maybe to find a CTO, like depending on the needs. And obviously there were cases in between. So right now, the focus is, I would say, more on finding the best teams that we could support, no matter if it's only cash investment and then they can do on their own. But we definitely want to engage if there is a fit. So really help them to reach the seed stage. So we focus on the early stage of their life. So usually before the seed stage.
And maybe one more personal question. I'm not a founder, so I cannot actually say much about that. But as a founder, you started your talk by talking about crisis, and then you explained how many crises you went through. So how do you manage stress, or how did you manage stress in all these situations?
Yeah, yeah, that's a crazy question. I would say many different things. It's good to have someone. So my girlfriend was very supportive. She was listening to me complaining all the time. It's better to complain to her than to my team. I read a bunch of different books. So from books like How to Stop Worrying and Start Living to Men's Search for Meaning. So deep things. I like Stoicism as well. I think it's a combination. Like probably maybe for everyone the solution is going to be slightly different. I think I needed solutions all over the place. So reading, support from my girlfriend, my wife, support of my business partners as well. Sometimes I speak with solo founders as a mentor during different occasions, and I see that they don't have anyone. They are happy to just speak with me just for the sake of explaining their situation, and don't expect me to provide any kind of solution, but they need to vent their frustration a bit or share the problem with someone. So I think this is also valuable to do. Maybe open up to not to your relatives, but someone from the industry that you know. Yeah, we actually did the same. So we reached out to our mentors at some point looking for help. So that was also one of the 3 main points, yeah.
But do you have now a kind of mentor, apart from being one?
Yes. There's always someone that it's better in certain aspects of running a business. Over the last year, I collaborated with a guy I've known for many years. And even though we engaged with him mostly for sales and marketing reasons, actually what he brought to the table was just listening to us, how we complain about things, and giving advice how to change our mindset. So that was super helpful. And I think it's much easier to, at least in my case, it's easier to learn from other people, from mentors, when you can really speak with them, when they can really assess your situation and make their advice a bit more personal. Because when you read articles, blogs, books, it's always some kind of an advice, but detached from your context. And a mentor can take into account your context and then give you some advice. Obviously, they're biased in many cases, so it's not so bad to speak with a bunch of people. Yeah, so this is definitely something I would recommend.
Mm-hmm. And how come back in the days you became the CEO? So I mean, as you mentioned, no one knew what to expect. And you were like, oh, yes, I can be the CEO. Or how did that work?
Yeah, let's say I was the most active on the business side after the intervention. Maybe this was a bit more like, it was a bit more natural to me to fill this role than for others. All of my partners were software engineers, so stereotypically speaking, they were software engineers. Not all of them, obviously. It's a bit of a simplification, but it somehow happened because probably my natural disposition.
Okay, so let's say a mixture of situation and just some pure insanity.
And maybe just to mention one thing, I was also one of the shareholders, so it wasn't like I was a person from nowhere. I had a financial interest in the company as well, but on the same level as every other person.
Mm-hmm. And I'm the only one shooting. I can go on.
You're just on the move.
I wonder, come on, Phoebe, you can have one. I have already 3 or 4 in mind, but you can go.
I mean, there has been obviously quite cold water. You were being thrown in or jumping in, and sometimes it's easy to really do the sales, as you said. It is based a lot of probabilities, so it just needs to work out, or you just need to find certain people. But how actually did you manage to selling yourself as well? So I mean, this is a hard way to do. So if you have a product, maybe that is easy, but in the first place, you need to sell yourself as representative of the story and of the company, of the remote people somewhere in the world. So how was actually that, and how did you evolve so you were actually not convinced by yourself, but able to convince others?
Oh, it was really crazy. So at the beginning, I had no confidence that I could be doing it because I didn't have any prior experience. I knew how the company worked. I was able to explain it to people, but not even in the sales way. So I don't believe in this kind of salesy approach. ABC, always be closing. For me, it's more like advising people, making relationships. Sometimes there is a fit, sometimes there is not. And if we are not able to deliver something, then I don't say, well, yeah, we'll deliver it, and then we'll think about how to do so. So at first, I needed to learn how to explain everything to people. It was really a trial and error. I must have had like hundreds of calls over those years, if not thousands. At the beginning, I sucked. Then I sucked a bit less. Then I had some mindset problems, like if I get rejected after 100 calls, then this 100 and the first call is a bit difficult. I might have a bad attitude to the next potential client because I expect failure. So this was also something difficult to overcome. One of the recent changes, now I think about it more as I try to detach myself slightly from the process. So obviously, you need to engage as a human being with the other person, but on the other hand, you just have an offer behind you. You offer this and that. They value it or not. They might like you, maybe not like you so much, but I feel more like I'm a representative of a certain offering. So I don't try to associate my failures with not being able to close, only with my person, because that would be very unhealthy in the long run. I know that because the company might not have the perfect offering for someone, it's not my fault. I did whatever I could to make a good impression, to engage with someone. So it's been always like a bit of a changing process over the years, from learning the technicalities behind it, how to really speak with people, what to emphasize, what not. Then it was more of a mental problem of the mindset. And then I overcame, hopefully, the mindset problem, and then it became easier and easier. And now we have this process in place when we speak with people, collect feedback, change the offering, speak with people, collect. So I'm not saying it's more mechanic and without any human factor, but it's healthy from the standpoint of not just making sure that I still believe in myself.
And this iterative circle of actually proposing something, checking if it's doing the right, or if you're proposing the right thing, changing it maybe. How did you, or did you set up a real process in there? So we had workshops already of product market fit. So how do you choose your market? How do you figure out what the product should be? So do you need to get rid of certain developers that nobody asked for, or do you need to train developers to actually also offer this type of, I don't know, obviously I'm not a coding guy, of what is being asked for. So how was that actually implemented in your company or in your processes?
Mm-hmm. So on the high level, I believe in two things. So there is market that needs something, and there is something that is interesting to you. And then you're trying to find an intersection of those things. Some people, they focus on what they like and they forget that someone maybe should be buying, and then it's difficult. Some people are purely market-driven, and then they don't get any financial rewards. They're disappointed that they don't want to continue. I really believe in the combination of the two. And then to find the right combination, I believe you need to have a process. So you start with something, with some kind of first offer that you think might make sense, taking into account your strengths, your resources, your past projects, whatever you have. And then you start iterating with the market. So you make one campaign, another campaign, you collect feedback, you speak with a bunch of clients, you write down what they say, and then you adjust the offering. And obviously, in the case of startups, there might be more difficult. They might need to be pivoting at some point. So to some extent, building a different business, not even to some extent, but depending on the amount of changes. In our case, it wasn't so dramatic. So we know those kind of services are needed. We discovered the investment part as well. We thought, well, that would be really great. Like in many cases, our clients stop working with us because there's pressure from investors saying, well, you're not able to rely on external partners. But if you work with your investor and they help you, it's a different game. That wasn't obviously the only motivation, but this is like one of the factors that was helping us. So in our case, we added the second pillar, which was more of a bigger change also for us as a challenge to build up a process that we didn't have and so on. But yeah, typically it was always the intersection. So for instance, instead of selling to corporates, we were selling to startups because this is something that we knew very well. And this is actually what we enjoyed. So starting projects from start, or maybe not even from start, but taking over after 2 years of development, much more exciting to be developing the product instead of maintaining some old system, bureaucratic system, which is not so compelling and doesn't spark much imagination. So that was, from this interest perspective, that was what mattered.
And maybe a question regarding the teams. So you mentioned before that you looked into 300 companies and startups, and so maybe 2 points. Which kind of people are you looking for? Like which kind of characters are you looking for, and which kind of impact you would like to say? Maybe they are not matching one with the other. So the perfect would be that they are matching, obviously. But yeah, what is inspiring you? Like, what's the impact that in which sector, or I don't know.
When it comes to the important factors, definitely the main one is the team. So at these early stages, all that matters is the team. The idea, the market in itself, yes, but it's very difficult to say what's going to happen in a few months, in a few years. And when we look at the team, obviously there are like obvious things, what kind of experience they have, blah, blah, blah. But on the top level, what really matters to us is their attitude. If what they want to build has this impact aspect, or they're simply driven by potential financial returns. We are looking for a balance of the two. If someone is only impact driven, then they are a bit, not saying maybe they're not naive, but let's say they don't focus enough on the business side, which is also harmful. If they only think about the returns, then it's fine. I don't mind. Simply not the kind of people I'm looking for. And then if we go deeper into the kind of impact, we selected 3 things also out of our interest. So everyone fighting climate change, improving sustainability, and a different kind of fighting different kind of socioeconomic inequalities. So for us, we really had like a brainstorming session, actually a bunch of brainstorming sessions with our team to figure out what was important to the team. And this is how we discovered it. So obviously I had my own preference, but 12 other people have had other preferences, and we combined everything. And this is how we selected our focus. And in case of Rootcamp, agriculture was actually the first one we thought about because of all those problems with agriculture and CO2 emission, farmers being put in a difficult position, a lot of pressure from retailers and other actors in the industry. So that was the perfect spot. But then we started also going into other directions. For instance, fashion is very interesting. Forced labor problems, supply chains, yeah.
Thank you. Are there more questions? Michele, Subrajit, David? No one.
Yes, one question I wanted to ask the whole time. First of all, thank you for your very compelling and very relatable story. I think starting as like a service or startup yourself, transitioning to a fund is very uncommon. How exactly was the decision made? Because I really want to understand that. That's really interesting.
Actually, this is another story. So it was a bumpy road. To make it short, we were looking for the way to reinvent ourselves for a few years. Must have been 2-3 years, maybe 2. We were doing research in many different places. We actually had a startup before, so there was like mother company of the service provider Ragnarson. We had a startup doing the hosting business. That was very exciting, but we needed to close at some point because we weren't able to do sales. So we were dreaming about those golden of this golden era, and we were thinking maybe we could start another project. Like with most of the agencies I know from Poland, this is the holy grail. So they always try to build a product, but they don't focus on it because they need to run the agency. And this is like an ongoing problem all the time. And with the fund, it made much more sense, the combination of the two, because they could help each other out. It's not completely different. It's still helping your clients, but to a bigger extent. The process, obviously, of the investment process is different, the delivery, but in general, you don't need to have a huge team to do so. So to make it short again, lots of research, lots of experimentation, thinking about different directions, trying those directions, consulting with people, iterating, speaking with people, and then after hundreds of iterations, we are here.
It makes sense somehow.
David, do you want to do the same after after some time to Aquapurna? Then you could think about it.
I actually had the same question as you, David, to some of my clients. When we were looking for also for maybe to become a product company, I was thinking, how do we come up with an idea? So we had like expertise from all over the place because we collaborated with startups from different industries. So we didn't have expertise in just one, but at the same time, we weren't really deep into any of them. So I approached some of my clients asking, how did you come up with idea? You know, I'm in this ideation phase. I would really appreciate some advice. And usually it was super random. It was, you know, we knew someone and this someone suggested this and we looked into it and it made sense. Or, you know, my family had a farm and then we started something. So it was usually very, not so really engineered, but purely random.
Cool. Guys, are there more questions, comments, whatever you want to share? Otherwise, we are also approaching the end of the... I hope it was not too unpleasant. I guess it's not so easy to be in the spotlight and just answering questions. If you want to ask any questions, feel free to ask questions.
I actually have one question.
Sure.
So I told you my story, and some aspects of it might not be so relevant at your stage. So my question would be, what are the biggest challenges on your side right now?
Who wants to start?
Well, there are a few things. I mean, like the first one is getting the sales going and keeping the positive cash flow. And then, of course, keeping the people, because quality people with the right mindset and with the right company culture are really hard to find. So there are a few things there.
And when you say sales, you mean more about establishing the process or finding product market fit?
Finding the clients. And we kind of have a few products which we're offering, but they're still at I wouldn't say prototype stage, but they still need to be tweaked for the product market fit. But we also need to we desperately need to sell something in the next year, so to keep the company going. I mean, we're a young company, there is still time, but then again, that's our next step.
I feel you. Okay, thank you.
For us, it would probably be leaving the death valley of the investment phase, because we have a great technology, a great product, but we're too far for very small investors, but too small for very big investors, for corporates or VCs. So we are in a very hard phase of the investment process where there are very limited people to talk to, and it's really a struggle to keep on fighting.
We have a list of 200 impact investors. Maybe someone would be relevant. I can share it with you later on.
Yeah, I opened it simultaneously.
Good.
It's shared already.
Yeah, that would be great. For us, it's the same. It's kind of mix of what Oscar and David said, VC, and at the same time it's two parts. Like, so she's taking care of the VC. I'm like doing the kind of product market fit with real pilot projects right now, and yeah, that's it basically.
Got it. Okay, that really helps me to better understand the needs and prepare workshops for startups at your stage. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing.
Would be interesting.
Yeah, go ahead, Michele. Sorry.
Interesting, like difference between European startups and American startup competing for the same stuff with we have like developing countries budget against US budget. It's like,
yeah. I probably know which case you have in mind of who in the US raising crazy amount of money.
One thing I noticed is that you repeat many times the word iteration while you were talking about sales and other things. And I think this is a bit also the initial problem of startups, that this iteration also if you have a lot of B2B customers, those iterations are happening a bit slower than what brings your product forward. So you are learning, it takes time to learn and iterate.
Yeah. I mean, I would say this is like a common problem, and the mentor I mentioned before actually helped us with the same to some extent. So really starting from the high level of what the message should be to what kind of people, to building a team that would be able to execute it. So creating different campaigns in different channels with different but integral messaging of what we want to do. Happy to connect you if you need help. Yeah.
Yeah, sounds good. And yeah, so you managed the 1 hour under the spotlight. Yeah, and it was a real pleasure to have you here. I know you have like the call with Oscar. I hope the recording is good enough for any videos you would like to make out of it. And yeah, just let me know if you make the video in case, because then I would also like to share a post. So I don't want to burn your post by posting it before you. So just let me know that we can kind of synchronize the social media reach.
Got it.
Yeah.
I will speak with my team and coordinate with you.
Okay, great. In terms of marketing, I'm the only one responsible, so it's easier. It's very streamlined, the process. Okay, cool. So yeah, very interesting story. Thank you very much once again for sharing it. And yeah, we will keep in touch and wish you a nice evening also to the startups. And yeah, we will talk. So today is a bit the end of the program. We kind of keep it Friday free program so that they work on the startup. And so we will talk on Monday. Have a nice also evening and weekend.
Thank you so much, guys, once again for listening, and thank you so much, Philip and Gaia, for inviting me. Have a great rest of the week, great weekend. Yeah, and let's catch up in some time.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Have a nice
Bye, everyone.
weekend.
Bye.